I know what you're thinking. There's no way a dork who doesn't even have a beard and rides a Honda is going to be able to show a Harley-Davidson you've never seen before. Well, I think a Harley that was manufactured in Japan, but never exported outside of Japan, and had most of the production run destroyed, has got to be a pretty rare bike. So, join me as I go in search of the legendary Japanese Harley.
So on top of being a very rare bike, the only one available for viewing that I know of is at a museum which is located up in the lakes area around Mount Fuji. And on top of that, the museum is only open for 1 month of the year. We've got a fair ride to get there, so along the way, I'll give you the history of this rather curious bike.
Let's start way back in 1908, when the number of cars in Tokyo was around 10, and the number of suicidal jackasses on go-karts was exactly 0. It was a golden age. Now, there was a pharmaceutical company called Sankyō who decided to dabble in importing cars, and they became the official importer for Ford. But they were unable to offer service or spare parts, so that venture went quickly down the proverbial squat toilet. But if at first you don't succeed, try again. And in 1923, they became the official importer for Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Now, learning from their mistakes with the Fords, they built a dealer and service network in Japan, which was a pretty unique and successful idea at the time. Then, luckily for them, but pretty unlucky for everyone else, the Great Kantō Earthquake hit Japan and pretty much destroyed the public transport system. Now, as you know, after an earthquake, the best way to get around is a motorbike, so demand for Harleys surged. Now, to try and keep costs down, Sankyō got a license from Harley to assemble the bikes in Japan. And that went pretty well for a while, but there was pressure on Sankyō to make production completely domestic. The Japanese yen wasn't doing too well, and the Imperial Army, who were big buyers of Harleys, weren't too happy about having America have control over their supply. In another piece of good luck for Sankyō, just around that time, Harley was moving on to the new knucklehead engine, so they were only too happy to sell the old machinery for the flatheads to Japan, as long as they didn't export. So the deal got done, and production of the all-Japanese Harley began. Now, the bike was named the Rikuo, which means the Land King, and these bikes were essentially VL and R series flatheads. There was a 1200cc big twin and a 750cc mid-size, and they quickly became staples of the police force and the Imperial Army. Then came Pearl Harbor in 1941, and that completely tanked US-Japan relations. World War II went into full swing, and most of the Rikuos went straight to the Imperial Army. So business, at least for the time being, was pretty good.
Well, here we are at the Kawaguchi Motor Museum, which is also together with the Aero Museum. Let's get out of this insane summer heat. Now, this place certainly isn't set up as a tourist attraction. There's very little English around, which is a shame because there are a lot of interesting vehicles on display. There's even a Ferrari 275 GTB sitting rather unceremoniously in the corner, even though these things now sell for a price of around $2.5 million. And there's one on sale now for $3.1 million. Not bad for a used car. There's also this interesting example of Japanese engineering. As far as bikes go, you could spend an hour checking out all the classic bikes they have, but there's only one we're interested in. And here it is. The sign says this is one of the very rare examples of a Harley-Davidson assembled in Japan. As I mentioned before, the Japan-assembled Harley-branded bikes were only produced for a couple of years, making these bikes very rare. Now, once production was completely made domestic, the bike was rebranded the Rikuo, and here it is. You can see it's basically the same bike with a few mostly cosmetic modifications. Unfortunately, the company was doomed to fail in just a few years.
So what caused the downfall of the Rikuo? Well, there were a few things. Firstly, Japan lost the war, of course, so that was the end of the military contracts. Their other customers, the rich elite, had almost disappeared after World War II. On top of that, America was in Japan now, and with America came American Harleys, so the Rikuo had competition from the real thing. And on top of that, post-war brands like Meguro and Captain started gaining traction with better performing bikes. The fact was, the Rikuo was stuck with aging designs built on worn-out factory equipment. They were still making flathead engines, while even Harley with the newer, better performing knuckleheads was struggling to keep up with European performance bikes like Triumph and BSA. So at that time, you now had cheaper, faster local brands, and you also had competition from the real Harley. The poor old Rikuo was sitting in the middle. It was a Japanese bike that didn't perform as well as other Japanese bikes, and it was a Harley that didn't perform as well as other Harleys. So it just got squeezed out of the market. Production shut down in 1949, and that was the end of the original Rikuo. The brand did receive a lifeline a year later when the Showa Aircraft Company bought the rights and tried to reboot the Rikuo. They did gain some traction with some sportier bikes. One was even a very similar bike to the BMW R25. But by then, it was too late, and I think you can guess why. Honda, Suzuki, and Yamaha had arrived. Honda was killing it with their Super Cub. Yamaha had better performance and better designs. And Suzuki, like they're still doing today, were offering unbeatable cost performance. Poor old Rikuo didn't stand a chance. The production ended in 1959 and the company completely folded in 1960. That was the end of the reborn Rikuo. As far as the original Rikuo goes, these days hardly anyone's even seen one, and there are a few reasons for that. Well, for starters, they're pretty difficult to ride. You've got your throttle on the right, but then you've got your ignition advance on the left, and you've also got your stick shift, so it's a bit of a circus act trying to ride one. Another reason why they disappeared so quickly was the wartime metal collection laws. In 1941, Japan confiscated just about anything metal to support the war effort, so countless Rikuos were confiscated and melted down. And the few remaining Rikuos were collected by, how can I say this, a fringe group. Because of the bike's connection with the Imperial Army, far-right groups, often with underworld connections, swooped in and collected the few remaining bikes. A lot of them disappeared into private collections this way. The Kawaguchi Motor Museum has closed again until next summer, so the Japanese Harley and its close cousin, the Rikuo, have become a ghost story once again. Now, if you are a Harley fan and you ever make it to Japan, it might be worth a trip up to the Motor Museum. Remember, it's only open in the hottest month of August, so you might have to trim the beard back a bit to avoid heat stroke. Anyway, if you found this video remotely interesting, please give it a like. And as always, any comments, questions, or insults are always welcome. Till next time, thanks for watching.